When you give up something, and I don't even want to say it this way because it doesn't seem fair, but you give up something for Christ. And I go back in my own experience, and I gave up the hot rodding business I was in. I figured it was idol worship. And I remember selling my beautiful 1927 Ford Coupe back then with the 427, 435 horse. And you know what I'm driving now? Matter of fact, I was going to drive it to church today, but it was just a little too cool. What do you think I'm driving today? Anybody want to take a guess what I'm driving today? 40 years after the fact. What do you think I'm driving? Member of the Adventist Rodders Club. What do you think I'm driving? So I'm going to take a guess what I'm driving now. Right. There you got it. A 1927 Ford Coupe. Jag independent. Four-wheel power disc brakes. Chevy V8. Turbo 350 automatic. You know, black. Anchor black. Almost identical car. Almost identical car. The Lord helped me put the whole thing together. You have to remember, Jesus was a carpenter. You know, he was good in the trade of carpentry. And I see nothing wrong with some of our young people and older people getting involved in the trade of mechanics. And finding an old gem somewhere, an old barn find somewhere. And taking time and taking a little bit of money and fixing it up. Fixing it up. You know, the whole process, right from the very beginning to the end, is ministry, 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 ministry. Christ restores, Christ restores, Christ restores. It's just over and over and over and over again. You just can't help but passing on what God has done for you. And you know, I remember David here, our boy, he just got a job working for one of the biggest dealerships in the whole area. And I remember driving him down for his appointment to see if they would hire him as a mechanic, as an apprentice mechanic. He wanted to get a job as an apprentice mechanic. So we went down in the coupe. We went down in the my 27 Ford Coupe. And we went down to that big, huge dealership. And by the way, it was a GM dealership. And here I am driving an old Ford. And I pull into the back where the big doors are, where they bring all the vehicles in and where all the mechanics are. And as soon as I stopped to let David out so he could go talk to the service manager, all the mechanics come out and they all gather around the car. And they get down on their knees and they look underneath the car. And they open the door and they look inside the car. And you know, not one of them had the courage to ask me what was under the hood. They were just kind of amazed. You know, it's amazing what an old car can do for some people, especially a mechanic. So anyway, to put a long story short, one of the mechanics stayed longer than usual. And he had lots of problems in his life, he noted. But he had an old Model A coupe at home. He was in the process of hot rodding, but hadn't quite got to finishing it yet. And you know what I did? Same old story. It's an old story we just love to repeat. I handed him A Desire of Ages by Ellen G. White. And I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Mel." I said, "Mel." I said, "Let me tell you something." I said, "If it wasn't for this book," and it's all true, if it wasn't for this book and my reading this book, I says, "I would not be here talking to you today and driving this hot rod." He said, "Really?" He said, "Really? Is that true?" I says, "That's true." I says, "If it wasn't for my reading this book," I says, "I would never be driving this hot rod or riding this hot rod today." And he just looked at that book and he says, "Well, you know what? I'm going to read it." He wants to finish his hot rod. Well, then he needs to read the book, right? He needs, the book itself will speak for itself, right? And it will point him to one who will help him as I was helped and as thousands and thousands and thousands of others have been helped, even to build a hot rod. Isn't that amazing? I'll tell you something, that is just amazing. And we are very glad and very happy to have such a club available in the Adventist communion here at Mesa, Arizona, and indeed throughout the whole world. That those interested can certainly be in the Ark, join the Ark, just like I did. And Don and the boys are doing girls are doing a great job, a great job in bringing to light all kinds of various automotive facts and figures and videos. Some of the club members are sending in all kinds of beautiful, interesting videos that all can come up online, all having to do with automotive, with one purpose in mind, and that is to point others to Christ. And so, barn find fever? How about Christ find fever? Christ find fever?